Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Play the Tape. I am your host, Derek J. Fields. Full disclaimer, we are not licensed or trained or certified clinical therapists, licensed social workers, or drug and alcohol counselors. However, they have and are will be on the show because I have one today for you. Yes, indeed. Listen, I know that I love all my guests. I love all my sisters and my brothers because I call them my sisters and my brothers because we have a commonality and a camaraderie in care and in love and in experience, strength, and hope. And that's what Play the Tape is. It's a platform for support, advocacy, and community. And it's a platform where people like me, people like my guests can come share their stories, share their experiences. And in turn, that's hope. So my guest today is Tiffany, and she is a treatment placement specialist with Acadia Healthcare. She provides guidance, support, and resources as a professional. For her clients, she assists in programs and options for individuals who have behavioral health needs, needing eating disorders, mental health concerns, and substance use concerns. She is certified abuse counselor, so she's a CSAC. She's also certified in clinical trauma specialist with the emphasis on addiction. She's been doing this, providing private practice for about 3 years now. She is a native of South Carolina, but she calls Virginia home for the past 23 years. A graduate of Radford University with her BS in psychology. She later got her master's degree in community and college counseling in Longwood University. For 20 years of experience. In those 15 years, she served as a social worker, coordinated services for at risk youth in the community. She's part-time as a crisis-oriented counselor serving high-risk populations. Through her tenure, and just to name a few of the organizations that she advocates for. She's a member of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which is NAMI. She is also a member of the National Association for Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Counselors, NAADAC. And she's also a member of the Virginia Association of Addiction Professionals, so VAAP. Tiffany is passionate about the work that she does. She takes pride at being able to connect individuals with quality treatment to address their needs. And in her words, I am only where I am today because of other people who've helped me. For that reason alone, I would never stop helping other people. I think that's fantastic. I think that is something that a little bit of foreshadowing that we're going to have in some of the talking points and some of her story that she's going to share today. So enough about me talking and everything. I'm ready for Tiffany to share her story. So the floor is yours. Welcome. I want to say thank you. I love you. And it's an honor having you on the show today.
Thank you, Derek. Good morning. What an incredible introduction. So I do appreciate that. Like, I feel like you make me sound a little bit better than I actually am, but I certainly appreciate that. And you always have a special place in my heart. So I was more than grateful to be able to be a guest on your show this morning. And I know you kind of sent a few talking points, but just to sort of give you a background, just with the treatment placement role, it's sort of been incredible how my career path sort of started, right? Like, I knew as a very young child that I wanted to always be in the field of helping others. It's always been my passion. And I think too, just to kind of give you a background of my history and story, I think just sort of growing up in a family where there was significant substance use issues, significant mental health issues, and really not knowing as a child how to navigate that. But I knew that it was my role to sort of help, right? Like, I wanted to be in that profession very young as a helping kind of person. And I knew behind that, even being so young, that like there was a reason behind that. Like, people don't typically act this way or feel this way if there's not something else going on. So that was like sort of embedded in me as a young child. Through my dad's substance use sort of issues and concerns and my mom's mental health, it was just like, okay, what can I do to help make this better? We can sort of figure this out. How can we Get service, maybe not services at such a young age, but just how can we figure this out to make you better.
How
And
old
my role,
how old were you when that
I
wisdom or that enlightenment came upon you to be like, okay, something is amiss here, and I feel it in my spirit and in my heart and in my mind that my parents maybe. How old were you when that happened?
I would say, Derek, I was very young. I would say around 5 or 6. It's just when you
Wow.
start, when you're
Hmm.
little, when you're young, but you're old enough to kind of know something's not right, right? Like it's like something doesn't feel good, but also like I just came from that sort of passion as a young child. I was just like, well, let me see how can we make it better? Let me sit with my mom and comfort her. Let me figure out how to help my dad through these withdrawals and things the next day. You know what I mean? Like, hey, let me help
Hmm.
you. Let me make a sandwich. And I can remember as a young age, and even with my brother. So I do have a younger brother that's 3 years younger than I am. Same thing with him. It's just like, okay, like I have to help take care of him, right? Like he needs care. Let's get up and fix breakfast. So it was all of those things. And I say that to say this. It's just like that was just the probably the turning point in my life as a child. Is just like I want to be in this field. What can we do to sort of help people? And I remember just again because of the substance use, the mental health, and a lot of things going on in the family, we were involved with social services a lot. So like social services was coming to the home, and I remembered those like kind ladies that would come out. And again, my career started in social work. It's just like, ooh, I want to be able to be that person that comes to the home that helps that family say, hey, like I know you're struggling, but what can we do to sort of help you through this? What can we do to make the kids feel safe? What can we do to provide for your family that's going to help you guys be stable and stay together as a family? And I remember that at a very young age. And that was sort of like my childhood. We had opportunities to stay with other family members and stuff like that. And although that happened, and again, just being a social worker later in my life, it's like I wanted to be with my family. I knew that there were other things going on with them that we could fix, I guess, for lack of a better word. And I spent most of my childhood, my adolescence, like knowing this is the field that I want to be in. What
Did
can I
you
do to figure that out?
did that ever harbor any resentment or any type of negative feelings towards your family being the quote unquote hero? Or because I've learned in treatment, and I, like, again, disclaimer, I am not a therapist, but I know you are. But I know that there are different family roles that different people play. I had to
Hmm.
learn that, and I've played two or maybe three: the hero, the mascot, the cheerleader, the humor guy. Like, um,
Right.
did resentment ever harbor in you, or you was just, I don't, there's no place for that. I'm a helper. I am a fixer. I am a doer. These are the things that I need to do to help my family, because I've seen these women come in and the care that they had. So was there any resentment, or that just didn't play a role?
I wouldn't say that there was ever any resentment as a child. Now, as you mentioned, just with the family system sort of model, like
Hmm.
everybody, like you said, has a role in the family. This is what the family dynamics are. Everybody sort of has their role in that. Um, and I think for me, the resentment came, but it was probably a little bit later on as I got older and I realized what things were sort of happening in the family and how I probably missed out on some things because of that, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
um, because my dogs are starting to bark in the
No,
background. I apologize
it's
for
more.
that.
No, it's morning. They ready.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like the mailman is
that's
coming. So,
that's fine. Yes.
so we might have to cut some of that out. But I think when you get older and you realize, hey, all of these other kids my age, whether they're young or they're in high school, they're experiencing all of these sort of things and activities and participating in all of these extracurricular activities and events that I sort of missed out on, I think, a little bit. Now, with that being said, I felt like I had a great childhood. I felt like my childhood was great. Our family stayed together the entire time. I know that my mom and dad both struggled with things, and they did. We missed a lot of opportunities and a lot of things throughout life because of that, but we had a lot of love. And I think at the end of the day, sometimes regardless of where you're coming from, what your family dynamics are, love is obviously the most important thing a lot of times. Well, maybe not the most important thing, but it's certainly an important thing there. regardless of what was going on, we had that love. I knew my dad loved me. I knew my mom loved me. I knew that I loved them like they were my parents. So I didn't see that I was missing out on too much until I got older. So I would say that's sort of when that resentment sat in. My mom tried to have us involved in activities, but sometimes because of my dad's addiction and her mental health, that sort of took priority. And it needed to a lot of times. Because of that, we were displaced
Mm,
quite a bit. So we were
right.
constantly moving and, different things. So again, and I think not being when people are not in situations like that, I don't know that they completely understand what those dynamics look like. And they're just like, oh, things are horrible and you have a bad family. And the reason why I bring that up is because later on I was judged by the family that I lived in, the family that I had. And it made me think differently. Like, right, it should be a matter of what happened to you versus what's wrong with you. And I think because of that, like I'm able to help more people because of those things. But I think we were judged a lot by that. But again, I didn't see that it was dysfunction really. I was just like, I'm helping. We're a family. We love each other. We're together at the end of the day most of the
Right.
time. Um, but the resentment did come later because it's when I was in high school and all of these people are doing all of these things. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, oh, I can't really participate in that because I need to be home to make sure people are taken care of, or I need to be able to be present for other reasons. But my focus was always, I've got to be home, like to take care of them. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
even as an adult, even as a mother or a professional in this field, it's the same thing. It's just like, and I know you and I chatted about that a little bit too. It's just like, what do you do to sort of make sure that you're good to take those calls? So when somebody calls me, like it's literally a matter of their life and death. So I sort of put everything else aside. And I step back into that caretaker role because again, at the end of the day, that's really, we're taking care of people. We are the link between whether they live or die sometimes. So that's just always been my mentality since I was a very young child.
I appreciate that in having that humanity and that care, even as an early age, because that's something that uh, we're going to elaborate on and expand on later in the interview in the show. When as a teenager in your high school years, learning and seeing other kids and peers do different things and have different experiences than your own, but still having that caregiver mentality at such a young age. I feel like that's a blessing that God gave that to you and put that in your spirit in your heart at such an early age. I think that is man, that just blows my mind because you don't hear that. That's something that has to be learned, or if it even can be learned. You know what I mean?
Right.
For you, was there ever a point where that resentment or that little bit of animosity deterred you from the career path that you wanted to choose of being a caregiver? There was never any like, huh, okay, I want to be here, but I still got these responsibilities. I see Tiffany going this way, but I still got to make sure on this side, I still take care of these responsibilities. Was there ever any like deterrent or any, I don't knows, just, I'm not sure.
No, never. So, and I think, but you bring up a good point because I think a lot of like young children, adolescents, or even like young adults, we go back and forth. Oh, I think I kind of want to be in this field. I think I kind, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of changes with that. That was never the case for me. Like I knew from that young age, I will be on a career path where I'm helping other people, like whatever that looks like, social worker, counselor. And the counseling didn't come until later, but I just knew I wanted to be in a helping profession. Never changed my mind. I never even tried or attempted another career path. It's just like, this is what I know my calling is. This is what I know that I'm really good at. And I know every day that I save somebody's life. And even as a child, like I said, it was the same thing. It's just like, it's chaotic and it's hectic all of the time. But at the end of the day, we're alive. They're alive. We're able to sort of function. So, and I know that's like so crazy even to say out loud, but I knew that. It's just like we made it through another day. And I think sometimes just being in this field, as you know, it's just like with people that are struggling with mental health, addiction, or whatever they're facing. It's like at the end of the day, you really take that deep breath and a sigh of relief. I've made it through another day. And sometimes that's what we have to do. I think as professionals, as people, individuals, it's just like at the end of the day, we really have to just get through one day at a time.
So how do you deal with, as a counselor, as a social worker, clinic certified, licensed, all these different organizations that you are members with, that you advocate with, having your bachelor's in psychology, having your master's in community and I apologize, and college counseling. How do you as a person handle your triggers, handle your trauma, handle your, even if you're not diagnosed, handle your depression, your sadness, grief, loss, because that happens to counselors too. People have this, I know, I'm gonna keep it on Derek. I know for me, when I was going in treatment for the first couple times, I didn't see the counselor or counselors as people. I was like, listen, I'm in crisis mode. This is life or death. I need treatment. I need help. Give me something. But we had to take a step back once I did treatment more than twice,
Yeah.
maybe a couple handfuls. And then I
Hey.
started, I started understanding that these people that are giving me treatment, that are giving me my first aid kit, so I can get to the triage, they have lives too. So how do you manage your own mental health stability, knowing that you're a caregiver, knowing that this is the career path, knowing that day in and day out, I have people in the palm of my hands. I have their
Mhm.
lives, their livelihoods.
And I think you bring up a really good point because we're all individuals. It doesn't matter if you're a professional, you're not a professional, like your background or whatever, like we all struggle with things at some point. And I think for professionals, clinicians, or just individuals altogether, I mean, you're constantly having to check yourself, right? Like you always have to say, hey, and again, like every day I'm seeing or talking to somebody every day, like to figure out where they're at. And when I get those calls, when I meet with those individuals, that is their moment of crisis. So that is like a last resort call for a lot of people. And they're desperate and they're in kind of this place where, again, and I know I keep saying this, it's really a matter of their life and death. So before I answer that phone, before I have that meeting with that person, I need to know that I'm going to be able to be present in that moment. I need to know that I have checked myself. And if I'm struggling with things during the day, I mean, we all do, because you never know what could happen. Like anything can happen at any moment in someone's life that could sort of change your mood or change how you sort of get through the day. But I constantly have to check myself. I have to know that I can be present in that moment with whomever when I'm doing that call, when I'm doing that face to face meeting with somebody. Because again, if I'm not coming from a place of compassion, care, concern, um, not allowing some of my other things that I've struggled with during the day to come across on those meetings, like you have to be very careful of that because people in the moment of crisis can pick up on those cues and it could really shut them down. So you never want to step into a meeting or a call with having some of that baggage. I think sometimes I just have to be mindful of where I'm at. So if I know that I'm not in a place to take that call, I'm going to have to, let it go to voicemail. And I don't let that happen a lot unless I know I'm not going to be able to be present on that call. And then when I can sort of get myself together or figure out what's going on, then I, return the call and then we kind of proceed as we would have originally. I think a lot of times I have to be mindful of stigmas and trauma and triggers. I have a team that supports me. I reach out to them. We call on each other. We run things by each other. I have a mentor. And then of course, if I'm struggling with some other things, then I reach out to a counselor myself. So I think a lot of times people don't think, and I appreciate you bringing that up. It's just like, these are the people that are supposed to help me, but those are people too. And a lot, they struggle with things. And a lot of professionals are in counseling and there's nothing wrong with that because regardless again of who you are, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. And I think being in the professional community, we have to do that sometimes more so than others because it really is a matter of if we're not okay, we're not going to be able to make sure other people are okay and really make the best plan or kind of help them figure out what's going on with them in the best way.
I appreciate you saying that. you have a support system too. I, I,
Hmm.
I really appreciate that because we think of, and I'm saying we, because I know I thought about it as, man, okay, they teach us to have a support system. They teach us, y'all teach us to pick up the phone, have a support system, like-minded people that are in recovery. And when I say recovery, it's not, for me, it's not exclusively just for mental health and substance use. I use that word recovery for as inspirational change moving forward. Because I know for me, in my mental health and my PTSD and my post-traumatic stress and my major depressive disorder, my anxiety, not sitting with my back to the wall. I need to know the exits. I know that I have to um, have a support system. I have to have people that I can reach out to when things are getting heavy. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I just didn't think y'all did. I didn't think y'all do. And that's important to have, and that's important to say. When it comes to stigma, in your opinion, how does that need to change? Okay, I know that's kind of vague or broad. What is stigma, first and foremost?
So I think stigma can be a lot of different things, right? And I think there's this whole idea about and we'll just use an example like with the veterans, you being a veteran yourself. I think there's this stigma there because I'm a veteran or a law enforcement officer or first responder. I'm not I shouldn't be asking for help. Because I'm in a helping profession. So, you know what I mean? There's a whole lot of stigma behind there. And there's a whole lot of and because of that, people don't seek treatment. Because of that, people don't reach out because they think that mental health or substance use or, eating disorders, whatever it may be that somebody's struggling with, um, says they're less than or says they're not worthy of whatever it may be. And I think for people it can mean different things. Stigma sometimes is just it's based on a lot of different things, and I think people again just don't seek help. They don't make those calls because of that, because of the fear of being judged.
Mm,
um, by whatever that is. And I know I do work with a lot of veterans. I work with a lot of first responders and law enforcement officers. And that's the very first thing that they say. And if you can have that conversation with them and you can get them over that hump that it's okay that they're seeking help, that it's okay. It doesn't mean they're less of a man, that they're less of a soldier, less of an officer. That they really need to check themselves and get themselves okay before they can be out here protecting all of the other people. And once you can get them to sort of change that mindset, it could change the trajectory of their lives. I mean, we see it every day, but there's so much stigma behind that. And I do see it a lot with the veterans and the law enforcement and first responders. That's the primary population that it happens with.
well, that's good to know because it was for me too. I mean, being of course a veteran, but also being a man, being a black man,
Right.
definitely in America, growing up in that family dynamic of, and my
Hmm.
dad is a 27-year vet. He's a Desert Storm vet.
Yeah.
So not only having my dad from growing up in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, being a veteran of the Desert Storm, that push it down mentality, that keep mowing through it mentality was definitely instilled in me. And then on top of that, the Army just expanded it. They escalated it. They made it even more so because it's mission first. And I had lost my train of thought before, but I was saying that for me, recovery is because I've had nothing. I've been homeless. I've been in the jail system. I've been in prison physically. I've been in prison mentally. I've lived in my car under bridges. So recovery for me is a shower, is going to
Hmm.
go get some sun on my face,
Right.
telling my kids I love them, going to go help my dad mow the grass, like
Hmm. Yeah.
holding my wife's hand. That's recovery. And I wanted to say that because I had lost it. And sometimes I tell people, listen, I've been through a lot in my brain. I
Hmm.
got TBI, I got trauma, the drug use. There's a lot of scar tissue. And
Yeah.
so excuse me if I have a brain fart.
Hmm.
Yeah, stigma is definitely something that I had to break.
Yeah.
I can tough through it. I
Hmm.
don't need your help. And then on top of that, it was that coupled with man, I'm not getting the care or the love. Man, I don't want to keep raising my medicine every time. Sometimes I just want to cry, or
Right.
sometimes I just want somebody to be like, "Are you okay?" and really mean it and be like,
Hmm.
"Do you really want me to tell you how I'm doing?" Is there stigma when it comes to therapists, counselors, social workers like yourself? Is there stigma in that? Because they say the stigma, we see stigma as on our end as I'm prideful, I'm not going in. I don't want people to call me crazy. I don't want people to think or judge me or look down on me, think I'm not hireable, think I can't handle a relationship. Is there stigma
Right.
in your profession for
Yeah.
counselors and social workers?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think you bring up a good point. There's a whole lot of factors of like what people think is stigma or what stigma is. And I think for professionals like counselors, therapists, doctors, and I'll give you an example. COVID was a prime sort of season when you've seen professionals really struggle. Everything, sort of went virtual, and all of your therapist was doing things online. And a lot of therapists were struggling with that because isolation, for one, can cause depression, even if you don't already struggle with that. And the reason I bring that up is because like when you're looking at, and I can't speak for all of the other states and all of the other sort of areas, but I can speak for Virginia had an extremely high increase of suicides with the professional community. And I think that's because like professionals didn't really figure out, maybe if that's the right word, how to kind of take a step back and take care of themselves
Mm,
because they were isolated. And I think because of that stigma, and although being a veteran, a first responder is a completely different setting, professionals kind of feel the same thing, right? It's just like, oh, we're taking care of these people, they come to us with their problems, we don't go to people with our problems. And not all professionals and therapists and clinicians have that mindset, but there are a lot out there that do. It's just like, I'm helping everybody, so I can't necessarily get help. But you know what? You can't pour from an empty cup. So I
mm,
say all of the time, like, you've definitely got to make sure you're in check, because I can't help Derek. I can't help, Jane Doe or whoever is calling in if I'm not taking care of myself. I can't fully give to you and commit to you and be present for you, to help you figure out things if I'm not okay. And I think a lot of therapists, again, just because of the numbers and statistics, you can definitely see that once COVID sort of hit. A lot of professionals relapsed because, again, it's not that we're all kind of immune to having addictions or having all of these other things going on in our lives. So it's like people that were in recovery relapsed a lot. And we've seen that a lot with the professional community too, because again, I think it's just like, hey, let me mask this by using this substance versus asking for help. Because I'm in a helping profession, and some people don't see that they should be reaching out for help. So I think that's another high population of where that stigma lies. People are scared to ask for help. There's been some change and stuff over the years, and a lot of professionals do seek help, but I know there's stigma behind that for sure. And again, just to give you an example, like if you're in a small community and
mm-hmm.
you're a professional, but the only other professionals you can see is in this small community, it's just like, ooh, I don't want people seeing me go in here, because you know what I mean?
Right.
They're going to think this or that. And it's the same for other individuals kind of seeking help. It's just like you brought up a good point about, not only are you a veteran, but you're a Black man. And we know culturally that's different. And Black men can handle more than anyone else. We're supposed to be these strong people. And I think that's a good sort of comparison, to some of the professionals sometimes, because we're supposed to be these strong people with all this knowledge to help
Mm-hmm.
you. We shouldn't be the ones asking for help. And again, I know that's changed, but there's certainly some stigma behind that.
So I want to talk about your educational background as far as so you was a licensed social worker first.
So I wasn't a licensed social worker. So I was just a social worker for the local Department of Social Services for like
Okay.
15 years, I think, a
Okay.
little over 15 years. Yeah. So that's
So
where my career sort of started.
so how does social work to certified counselor to certified clinical trauma specialist, how does that all how does that lineage work? How did you go from one to the other? How did the transitions work in that aspect?
So being a social, so it's two different things, but not really. So being
Okay.
a social worker, you're really like, let me pile you up with the services and you're doing more of that case management role. What all can I put in place to sort of help you, to keep your family stable, to keep your situation stable? And it's sort of a smooth transition going over to the clinical side because you're not doing much of that case management stuff. You are the service provider. You're the ones helping them through that. Where the social worker is just like, I'm providing all the services. On the clinical side, I'm helping you figure it out. I'm helping you navigate that. So it was a pretty easy transition for me, again, because of my childhood and where I came from. Like I just knew I wanted to be in that field. So for me, I took advantage of every opportunity. Even when I was in high school, if an opportunity was given to me to learn more about anything, I was like, sign me up. Let me do that. Um, as a social worker, same thing. Anytime there was like a course or a training or a webinar or like an in-person event, like I wanted to go. I wanted to learn as much as I could about not just addiction and mental health, but about family systems, about people, what people struggle with, like things to look for in situations in family that can kind of cue you into what's going on so you can provide the best service. So I just continue that. It's just like, okay, I feel like I want to go back and I want to be able to become a counselor. So let me just kind of continue my education, see what this looks like. Addiction was such a significant part of my childhood. And again, trying to navigate and figure out what was behind that. Like, why did he feel like he needed to do this? He's obviously mimicking something. And I wanted to know a little bit more about that. So I was like, I knew I wanted to go in the counseling field. I knew that addiction was going to be the emphasis that I took just because of that. Like, let me figure out why people think that this is what's going to help them, like mask what that is. And so I just dove deeper into that. And it's just like once you kind of get to that level and you start learning about things, it's like I can't stop. Like I don't want to stop learning about this because every day and still now, even regardless of the webinars, the trainings that I attend, I can go to something tomorrow and learn something new. Like the different drugs that are evolving, the different things that people are struggling with, the different methods and treatment modalities. I mean, it changes every day. And there's not one person or there's not one treatment option that's going to work for everybody.
Mm.
So you're constantly having to figure out like what's going to be the best option for this person because they're presenting with all these things. This hasn't worked, this hasn't worked, this hasn't worked. But instead of giving up, let's figure out what will work. So anything that I can do to sort of educate myself and trying to figure that out and help somebody navigate that, like I go to all the things. And there's some really great, like, I want to say new age. I don't even know if that's the right word, but we'll use that word today.
Okay. Yeah.
There's some like new age kind of stuff. And it's really, I mean, and it works for people and it's beneficial. And I think sometimes when people start doing some of these out of the box thinkings for treatment, counseling, whatever that looks like, sometimes people look down on that. But then again, if it works for somebody and it's saving their life, I'm all about it. Let me learn it. Let me figure out how to implement it, and we'll do this. And like I said, because I think there's not a one-stop shop. There's not one treatment program modality that's going to work for everybody. Because if that was the case, we would have no deaths at all ever
Mm.
in our country or community.
So I like, because one of the things we had talked about off air is how you stay relevant in your role.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you talked about, so I want an example of the new age and I want an example of um, tried and true. Let's just say tried and true. So this is a way that, okay, how do you stay relevant? I study, I attend, I go to conferences, I read, I study, I go to conferences, I talk to people, I talk to my support network because I can get a different perspective from what they learn. They might have found a new resource for the community that I haven't tapped into yet. So what is an example of to stay relevant in your role? What is an example of a new age and a tried and true?
And kind of like you said, just staying relevant. I attend, participate, see what's out there, regardless of what that looks like, whether it's treatment modality or not. And I think the tried and true, and I'll give like a generic sort of
Yes,
example of
yes,
that, just because
yes,
I work with so many different populations.
right.
So I think a lot of times with the tried and true, I mean, treatment, like if the longer that you can do treatment and the longer you can kind of stay in treatment, whatever that looks like, it could be inpatient, outpatient, but you kind of stay focused on that treatment and you continue to get that support, I mean, that's definitely a tried and true, regardless if you've got any treatment modalities involved. You're talking to somebody, you're kind of checking in with them, you're making sure that you have your supports. All of those things are important, regardless, and kind of what you said earlier. It doesn't matter what your recovery looks like or what recovery is to you or what you're recovering from. It's just that you're staying present in the moment and you realize that recovery is a lifelong process. So you stay involved with that recovery for the rest of your, I mean, unfortunately, that's how it is. You've got to kind of
Yeah.
stay involved for the rest of your
The rest
life.
of your life. Yep.
And whether you're checking in with a counselor weekly or whatever. So as long as you can kind of have those continued supports, absolutely tried and true, you stay in that, and that works for people. But I think outside of the box, and the reason why I say like new age outside of the box is just because people get a little bit leery of all of these new things. I mean, you've got ketamine treatments, you've got somatic experience, you've got EMDR, which has evolved a little bit. And EMDR doesn't work for everybody, and it's not appropriate for everybody, but it does work for a lot of people. There's been some new sort of new age developments with the ART, a little bit like EMDR, but it's not as traumatic, and you don't have to kind of relive those experiences as you do with the EMDR. It's really kind of replacing those memories with something positive, and it's new age, and it's not been around. And I say it's new age; it's been around for a little bit, but it's just something else that they're looking, that. And I say they, providers as a whole, not necessarily just, in my profession, my facilities and things like that. But and somatic experience, I'll give you a great example. We have a facility that's out in Arizona. They're known for that. And one of the therapists out there that sort of leads and runs that group, we have the opportunity to visit all of our facilities, right? So 2 weeks into my role, went out there, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna tour this facility, beautiful facility, meet the staff, and I knew that we would participate in some versions of those treatment modalities. Um, but we got to participate in a somatic experience, and it's really just a matter of picking up on your cues, your body language, trying to figure out, like, okay, we're talking about this subject. Why is that making you uncomfortable, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and in saying that, to give that example, I'm just sitting in there, and the first sort of task was close your eyes, and you're in a room full of strangers, right? So I had a hard time doing that, and I didn't recognize that about myself. I was like, I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, I'm here visiting the facility. I don't need to close my eyes. But also, so in saying that, also, I was mindful because I didn't know these people, and I knew that I had trust issues for other reasons. So I wasn't thinking that out loud, but the therapist in there instantly picked up on it. It's just like, okay, so tell me, Tiffany, why you're struggling with closing your eyes. Why are you tapping your foot like really, really fast? And it was like, what? Like, wow. So I had to take a step back, because then I was like, oh, like I'm processing this internally, like a little bit differently than I thought I was. But that's how incredible the somatic experience sort of can be, because that's what they're picking up on, and they really know, because you have to be well inside to be well outside.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
so something set me off, and then we were able to kind of process through that. So it's just like some of those things. And I think people, again, it's just like, you do have to think outside of the box. You have to be creative, because that can be, for me as a professional sitting in the room, was pretty impactful, because I was like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like, you think you've dealt with some of that trauma and the PTSD, and it's just like, in that very moment, I cannot close my eyes in this room full of strangers. That's where I went with that. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not like I don't want
Yes.
to participate. So I think with some of those things can be pretty powerful, impactful. And I could go on about the new age stuff, but I think those are some things that are pretty cool, pretty incredible, because it's changing people's lives on a different level than we're used to in this profession.
I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that and being transparent and sharing that experience that you had. And that's what we had talked about earlier, is that was support for you. Now that is added to your support system. That is a tool in your first aid kit, in your triage bag, that you have now. That, wait a minute, I need to check in, and checking in is good. I'm so glad you said, but to be better on the outside, it starts with the inside. Fantastic. I agree 1,000%. You have to
Mhm.
correct the inside first, excuse me, before the outside can be corrected. It always has to
Yeah.
start on the inside. And I just thank you for sharing with that. See, ladies and gentlemen, you have a professional here that the years of experience that she has, the years of educational that she has, she still has to be aware. She still has to check in. She still has things that she has to process. I think that was a fantastic example of you being human. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. So, in your current role, what do you like most about that now? Since you went from the social worker, you transitioned to clinical, and now you are a treatment placement specialist. What does that entail for Tiffany?
So just sort of advancing and progressing through my career, I think being in this role, the thing that I love the most is I give people hope every day. And when someone calls me now, because basically my role is to kind of say, hey, what are you struggling with? No matter what that is, whether that's mental health, addiction, whether it's trauma, PTSD, whether somebody has an eating disorder, it doesn't matter what their insurance is. So my role now really allows me to help people no matter what they're struggling with. And that's pretty important to me because Acadia is a very large organization. So there's a limited, the possibilities or options are kind of limitless. Like we have a program for everything. And I think in my prior roles, again, clinician part time, kind of put that on the back burner a little bit now because I don't have time to practice privately. But I've always been in these roles that I connect somebody. I worked for one specific treatment program. And at the end of the day, there's only so many beds in that one program. There's only
Right.
so many um, things that people are struggling with that can fit there. There's only certain kind of insurance that some of those programs can take. And not to take away from any of those programs because they're all great, but being able to be a part of an organization or a role where I have a program for everybody. Like there's not going to be a call that I take that I will say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to send you over here because I don't have any space for you, or we don't work with your insurance. I don't ever have to tell anybody that. So at the end of every call, I feel like I'm able to give somebody hope. So that is probably the most important thing, the thing that I take away every day about this role. Because I help somebody every day, and I know that it might sound kind of redundant because I've said this, throughout our podcast, but I am really a link between somebody and living and dying. They make that phone call, and it's again like a lot of people struggle to even get to the point they're calling or to set up a meeting with me. Like that's difficult for a lot of people, but they do it. And once they've done that and they can kind of hear whether that's my voice or someone else's voice, like we can kind of help navigate that, and make them feel at ease and make them know, hey, you know what? You called today, so you've done everything you needed to do today. We'll take it from here. Um, but that's like a big accomplishment. And I make sure at the end of every call or at the end of every meeting that I let people know, like, you did a great thing today. So, because I think sometimes when you're struggling with whatever, you can't see the positives. So you give them as many positives on that call. You made this call today. You committed. You took the time to be vulnerable. Like, I'll use one of your words too, because that's what people are doing sometimes, and they're being honest and vulnerable. They don't know me. They don't know who the person is on the other end of that call. They just know I needed to get help and they made that call. So I always let them know that that's you did that. You accomplished that today. And at the end of the call, we're able to give them hope. So that is definitely the thing I love most about this role.
I love hope. I love hope. You gave me hope. You and Mr. Eugene gave me hope. And I thank y'all for that. I thank both of y'all for that because I was coming from Texas back to Carolina, and I had to get placed in a treatment facility in Virginia, and y'all definitely helped me with that. And I am forever grateful that God was able to use the knowledge and experience that y'all have to help me. I'm always grateful for that. And I thank you. We have 10 minutes, and I want to take the time of everything that you do, everything that you have done. How does Tiffany unwind at the end of the day?
Well, Derek, I wanted to come back to what you said. So I'm glad I was the other person on the end of that call when it was your time to get into treatment. And I cannot say enough about how proud I am of you, how far you have come, the great things that you're doing, not only for yourself, but to kind of give back. And I think that's when you know that you're on that path of like and that long-term recovery. It's like, hey, I want to give back now. And you're doing that. You're touching so many lives. So I just wanted to say that. And I'm super proud of you and so glad that I could be that little piece in your recovery journey. So
Thank
super
you.
proud of you.
Thank you.
Um, so the way that Tiffany winds down is it depends on the day, right? Like I get a lot of calls, I do a lot of things. Again, I have to be like pretty present and recognize my own triggers in that. So it depends on the day what that looks like. But mostly, sometimes I work out, sometimes I'll read a book. And sometimes I like to watch old classic TV shows. It's just the thing. I grew up like watching those with my parents and grandparents. So for me to sit down and binge watch the monsters, I mean, that's a pretty typical thing for me.
Same.
Um,
Yeah.
and some of my friends are just like, what are you doing? But for me, it's easy, it's classic. You don't have to do a lot of thinking, and I enjoy it. So I do some of those things, but I also wanted to kind of mention this. So I have a 1977 Oldsmobile Custom Classic Cruiser station wagon.
Ooh.
I love it, and her name is Edna, but just wanted to kind of get that plug in while we were here today. But sometimes it's just a matter of like hopping in that car and taking a ride. Like I don't have like the radio doesn't work, but I got my Bluetooth speaker and I'm a classic girl, so I'm like an old soul trapped in it. We'll go ahead and say young body, but we'll just leave it at that. And so I'm streaming like 70s music, like in my 77 station wagon, because I'm all about like the classics and stuff. And sometimes that's just what I have to do. Again, it depends on the day. But I'll ride that thing around on the back roads, listen to my music, and it's just like, cool. You get a minute to breathe. I'm not thinking about anything, but being in that moment. And I think that's what's important for everybody. It's just like what is it for you that allows you to be in the moment, just to step away from whatever it is. Um, so for me, each day it kind of looks different, but it's gonna probably end with something classic, whether that's my station wagon or a TV show.
I like that. I like that. It's gotta stay classic. I like
Gotta
that.
be classic.
That's your slogan. I like that. You
Yeah.
better go ahead and trademark that.
You know what? I think I will. I'm gonna keep it classy. Keep
Keep
it
it
classic.
classic. Yeah, I like that. Keep it classic. And that's what we were talking about, people. That is Tiffany's recovery. Like people think, oh, you're in recovery. What? But like, I took a shower today. I took a hot shower. I brushed my teeth. I got a belly full of food. I got a roof over my head. That's recovery. Driving in her classic Oldsmobile, listening to her 70s and watching the monsters. That's her. That's Tiffany's recovery. That's what she does, and it changes every day. And I'm with you. Mine could be. I grew up watching I Love Lucy, but I know the monsters
Hmm.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I Love Lucy. That's that her and Carol Burnett. Anyway,
Oh yeah.
uh,
I'm with you. You
I'm
speaking
with
my
you.
language.
I'm with you. Listening to some oldies, but still goodies. I like riding too. I like driving and riding to music. I like working out. I like shooting hoops. Um, Sometimes I like to. For me, I pray. I meditate. I read my Bible. I sit and just be sometimes, and in tune with myself, or self check in. So I appreciate all the things that you said here today. Um, if people want to get a hold of Tiffany as far as resources, um, what resources are out there for people, or how could people get a hold of Tiffany to get in touch with some of these resources that your organization provide, or that you can place people if they need help or recommendations? How can people reach you, Tiffany?
So they can just call me on my cell phone. They can text me, and I'll give you. So do you want me to give you that, like on air here? They can
You
call, text. It doesn't matter.
you
All the
can give me
time.
your email, and then you can filter it out and vet that way.
Okay.
Absolutely. So give your email. They can reach you on your email, and then if it's someone that you want to connect with and give resources to, definitely give them your email. Absolutely.
Yeah. So my email address, and I can certainly shoot this stuff over to you in in an email
Hmm.
too. So my email address is going to be Tiffany Tiffany .leath Leath at acadiahealthcare.com, and that's going to be ACADIAHEALTHCAR.com. I think that's it. But
Awesome.
my work cell phone number too, I don't mind giving that out. It's
Yes,
540.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
540-750-3655. And to be honest, the cell phone's probably going to be the best option just because I'm in the car quite a bit, but I can shoot a text. Well, I'm not going to say shoot a text. I will talk to Siri, and because of my southern accent, it may or may not come across as it should. But I will definitely talk that text back to someone. So I am typically available all of the time. If I'm in a meeting, I will shoot you a text to let you know, hey, I received your call. I'm in a meeting. As soon as I finish up here, I will give you a call back
I
and
have
kind
that.
of schedule a time.
I have that problem too with
Yeah.
Google. Southern accent.
Yeah. It's a
Sometimes
different
it's
world.
like it's hard for it to pick up, but then I have to have to
Yes.
articulate and anything.
I know. I'm like, I didn't say giraffe. Like,
Right.
who says that in a text
Yeah,
message?
I didn't say that. I didn't say George. I didn't say
Yeah.
George. I did. I said
Okay.
enjoyed. I said
Yeah.
enjoyed.
Right. I'm like, really? So sometimes it's
Oh,
just easier to be like, hey, let me just text this really quick. So yeah,
I'm
happy to help.
absolutely. I know you are, and you care. That's the important thing. You have that humanity, and you have that humility. You have both, and that's a in my experience that's rare. It's rare to find people in this profession that actually care. So thank you for that. You're a blessing for that. And I love you in just in general as the person you are, but I love you for that you care. I do this when I go to do H&Is, hospitals and institutions, when I go speak or people want me to come out there and share my experience, strength and hope, or just host an NA meeting or AA meeting, or just want me to come out and give my hope and my testimony. Give me two things you're grateful for.
I'm grateful to be alive. I mean, first of all, and for like first and foremost, that's just definitely, I'm definitely grateful to be alive. And I am grateful that God has allowed and opened up this door for me to be in this space to help others. Again, I think my role is very small, but my role really helps save a lot of people. So I'm very fortunate for those two things for sure.
That's awesome, 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 awesome. Um, uh, I could go. I'm grateful for uh, God um, giving me grace and giving me chance after chance after chance after chance after chance um, to be able to do the work that He's placed in my heart. I'm grateful for that. And I'm also grateful for all my guests, including Tiffany today, to coming up here, sharing their story, sharing their experience, their strength, their hope, and and sharing the love and the things that they do in their lives for their lifetime of recovery. And that's what it is every day. Every day is
Abs-
that. Every day is that.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank you again, Tiffany. Again, I love you. I am so grateful for you being up here. And I would love to have you back because I tell people I would love to do recurring guests because what you've talked about today and the experience that you have today as you stay relevant in your field and in your role is going to grow. And there's going to be different treatments, new age, even newer age, and even newer age, but there's always going to be the tried and true. And I just want to get you to come back if you want to come back to talk more about your story and your experiences. So I always put that on the table for my guests.
Yeah. So absolutely anytime, I'd be happy to come back on. I appreciate the opportunity today. And of course, like I said, I have much love for you. You have a special place in my heart. And I'm just super, again, want to say I'm just super proud of you and where you are and what you're doing to kind of give back to the community.
Uh,
It's really important work, what you're
yeah,
doing also.
yes, I pray that, and I pray and I have faith that it will reach the people it needs to reach, and that's what I do it for. So, but thank you again. We'll talk soon. I love you so much. Until next time, Tiffany, you take care. Peace.
All right. Thanks, Derek. Bye bye.
Listen, that is what we do here at Play the Tape. If no one told you today that they love you, I love you. We love you. God loves you. With peace comes understanding. With understanding comes love. With love comes faith. And with faith comes hope. We'll jump down in that pit with you because we know the way out. We do, and we will. And we do it willingly. We do it honestly. We do it lovingly. And we do it without judgment. It's not our job. That's not our department. Just one day at a time. Just for the day. Just for the moment. Just for the minute. Till next time. Peace.